Hello everyone, this is the finale of What If Naruto Was Raised by His Father, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Damn, muttered Naruto as his hand clasped on his left ribcage. Only hours before had he been training and mindlessly let his guard down around Sasuke. Never use wind against fire, he only now remembered. As he rolled over to his right, he looked to the magenta-haired female in his bed sleeping soundlessly. The now 26-year-old slowly sat up from his bed to look around his large room before walking over towards his wardrobe. It had only been 3.5 years since he'd returned once again to the village, and 2 years since he officially moved into the house the fourth once owned. Hinata and him had only been together for 1.5 years now. As he turned around, he smiled towards her once again before placing a black and orange coat on over his black netted shirt and walking out the door. As Naruto walked down the hall, he passed the few rooms he'd never opened since the fourth had left. One of which was his bedroom. As he headed down the stairs, he passed pictures of friends, family, him, and his beloved plants. As he walked down yet another hall, he opened the sliding door. He felt the crisp air hit his lungs as he smiled. Now he would begin his morning training. 3 hours later. Where is he? Muttered a silver-haired 10-year-old as he walked back and forth between his two teammates. He's probably in trouble with the Hokage again, stated a red-haired female with 2 pigtails as she rolled her eyes to the shorter male. Or he could have overslept, added in a 12-year-old brunette as he slowly sat down on the ground. For someone as smart as you are, you should know he never oversleeps, snapped Lily as she flung her red hair over her shoulder in an overdramatic way. You know what? He began as he stood up and walked over towards her, his head clearly over hers. No. What does she know? Asked Sakura as she placed a hand on her hip and looked at Nico. Sakura-sensei, he said in a startled manner as he looked at her frightened. So what are you three doing? She asked as she looked at the two 12-years-old and the 10-year-old. Wondering where Naruto-sensei is, stated Kane as he fixed his mask on his face. Wow sensei, you got huge, muttered Nico as he looked at the pinkett with astonishment. That usually what happens when you get pregnant. Laughed Sakura as she rubbed her stomach. While doing so, she had dropped one of her books. As she went to pick it up, a flash of blonde appeared before her eyes. As she looked to her left, there was the blonde in question. Sakura, you really shouldn't be around like this. You're about to explode. What if Sasuke saw you? He'd try to find a way to blame me for you walking around, said Naruto as he tried to guide her back to her and Sasuke's place. No, he wouldn't, and I need something to crush my cravings, so I thought I'd go find something in town to eat. And the Hokage told me that walking was good for my health, and the babies, she stated as she looked to the blonde, but as she went to turn around, the raven-haired man in question was right behind her. Sasuke! Screeched Sakura as she held her heart and looked towards Sasuke with fear. Don't do that, she cried, close to tears. Naruto, why is she out here? Stated Sasuke rather than a question as he looked to the blonde. I just got here, don't go blaming things on me, said Naruto instantly as he raised his arms defensively. When anything goes wrong, you're usually the cause of it. What? You heard me, Dobe. YYOU. Stop. I came out here for some air and to get snacks. No one told me to come out, said Sakura as she glared at the two adults. But Sakura, your condition, what if something happens to you or the baby? Started Sasuke before Sakura cut him off. Sasuke, how many times have I told you? I'm pregnant, not handicapped. Well, let's go get some lunch. Smiled Naruto as he headed off towards town. Sensei, you can't be serious, it's only 8 in the morning. What happened to our mission? Asked Nico as he looked to the blonde male while his teammates followed the said man without complaints. It was cancelled, the old geezer we were supposed to protect SD early this morning. No worries, it was natural causes. And unlike you three, I've been up since 5 training, spoke Naruto as he continued into town. He's too weird, stated Lily as she gave a low sigh and followed the 3 males nonetheless, while Sasuke and Sakura followed behind. We're lucky, just think if we had Lee-sensei, whispered Kane. The reaction was mutual among the three kids. Thankfulness. Third training ground, a few hours later. So can either one of you tell me what it takes to become Hokage? Asked Naruto as he stood in front of the children as they sat near the three large posts. Well, for starters, you have to be the strongest in the village, and be respected by the people within the country, said Nico as if he copied every word from a textbook. Have to follow rules, at all times, said Kane. To have a brave heart, smiled Lily as she looked to the man in front of her. Well, yes to the first and the third, no to the second. That's not all there is to it. You should follow the instructions given to you, but you should never. And I mean never give up on the people around you, said Naruto as he looked at the three seriously. Now, do you see this stone behind me? Yes, spoke the three as they looked to see a giant black stone with a flagpole standing next to it. This stone is dedicated to all the heroes to have ever lived within our village, he stated as he pointed towards it. No smile upon his face. Oh, I want to be on that stone. I mean, who needs to be Hokage when you're remembered for all time right there? Smiled Nico as he jumped up, thrusting his fist into the air. The funny thing is, I once thought like that too, but this is a stone dedicated to all ninja who are here, he said with well then a whisper. The three became very quiet. Many people I had held close are on here, many who were too young to rest. Some are on there because of me. Others because of the demon fox, and many others on missions, wars, and many other things. This is what it is to be a ninja, to live and for your commander and most importantly your village, he said as he led the children towards the stone. As he approached it, his hand ran over the hundreds of names, stopping at a few. I was once on here, that was before, never mind, stopped Naruto as the children looked at him curiously. So tell me, do you wish to be placed upon here? Because I can easily make that happen, smiled Naruto as one of his clones held a kunai knife to Nico's en. Began the boy before he was stopped. Naruto Uzumaki, yelled a voice from across the field. The Hokage wants to see you, right now, spoke a masked man as he looked to the blonde, then disappeared. Damn, right when it was getting good. I wonder what the old witch wants now, muttered Naruto as he disappeared in a cloud of smoke, this clone staying with them. But put the kunai knife away and began to teach. Wait here, said the same masked man, leaving Naruto alone in a small room. It wasn't very large, rather small. It held a few pieces of furniture. But what stood out was the portraits of the past Hokages. Naruto silently walked over towards the pictures, stopping at the third one down. Old man, he said with a smile, remembering the times him and the third had fought, and how the man was the first person to never judge him for what he was, and who. It's you, he added as he looked over towards his right and lightly touched the picture, then without warning a slip of paper fell to the ground. Naruto was taken back. As he looked down to the yellowed envelope, he slowly bent down and picked it up. As he looked at the front of it, only one name was written upon it. Instantly Naruto tore open the piece of paper and unfolded it and began to read. Not only did he read it once, but 3 times. Then it fell, silently to the ground without any movements to grab it. And without notice AS voice called him from his wonderland and back to reality. As he looked around he saw the same man standing behind him, telling him to go see the Hokage. And he obliged, picking up the paper instantly as to not forget it. The words still going through his mind. Over and over. Uzumaki Naruto. Believe me when I say this is not how I wished to have had it turn out. Also believe me when I say I'm sorry my son, Naruto. That I wasn't there for you, when you needed me the most. But the thing I regret most is the way you were treated, the way people looked down upon you with hatred. Also that you were considered a container of a beast, instead of the hero I know you to be. You suffered a lonely and painful childhood, I know I should have been there. But I wasn't. But you should know, I will always be watching over you. My precious son. You should know, I was there the day you were born, you were also there the day I SD. Though you cannot remember the first time. Just for you to know, we will always be together. Knowing that I won't be there to help you like a real father would, it breaks my heart. I wish for you to always to listen my former teacher and student. You will learn much. So much you shall be the strongest one of all. I wish for you to remember what Kakashi once told you. You're the only shinobi who can surpass the 4th. I believe his words to be true. You have become an excellent ninja, my son. I wish for you to always to stick to your dreams. Because with you, I know that they will one day come true. You have a new life now. It's not filled with much pain and suffering as before. Even though you may never see this and will probably never be told the truth, I want you to know that I have always loved you. As well as your mother, she loved you the moment she knew you were to be born. Far longer than I had ever known. I wish I could have gotten to know you and be with you much longer, but that was not our destiny. I miss you, and will always hold you close to my heart. Remember, I will come when you need it the most. To protect you at all cost. My son. Minato. Hours later, Naruto sat alone in his room. It had been hours since the Hokage had seen him. He was home alone, he knew he would be for many more hours. As he looked around, he slowly sat up and began to walk. He walked past many rooms and pictures, but he found himself standing in front of one room in particular. As he unlocked the door, he slowly walked inside. It was the fourth room. This had been the first time he'd been in there since the blonde man SD. As Naruto sat down on the edge of the bed, he gazed out the close window. He could see all the town. Every bit of it. But instead of continuing to sit, he got up and walked out the door, and left the house. Naruto walked aimlessly around the town, without knowing where he was going or what he was thinking. He passed people who spoke to him or ignored him. He neither cared nor did he bother to reply to any of them. After an hour of walking, he found himself standing in front of the memorial stone, and looked down to two very important names. Jiraiya, Minato. As he looked more intensely down at them, he gave a low sigh. His rough fingers ran across the stone. A faint smile broke out upon his lips, and he began to speak. Hey, it's me. Guess what, you old pervert? I did it. I'm the new Hokage. Don't you remember how you told me how I was too dumb? I guess I proved you wrong, though you know I could do it all along. Didn't .tu. He smiled as he looked down. He then began to speak more. I wish you could be here tomorrow when they announce it. Said the blonde before turning around to see Hinata, who stood feet in front of him. Slowly walking over towards him, she gave him a hug. While he accepted the girl's acceptance and congratulation, he could only think back to before. Remember, I will always love you, my son. I know. Smiled Naruto as he looked to the sky with hope for the new future and the paths that would come along. He then looked back to the stone and saw not one figure but three. All smiling. And the next second they were gone. He then turned to Hinata and started his journey with her back to town. To be continued. 15 years later. The light slowly entered the open window to the right of the room. A blonde head turned slightly in their bed. A mumbled "M" came from his mouth as he covered his head with the thin blue sheets, trying to escape from the morning light. A soft tapping was to be heard from the other side of the door. A magenta-haired woman slowly entered. A graceful smile appeared upon her features as she opened it softly and walked up to the blonde's bedside. She lightly sat down next to him and pulled down the sheets to show his handsome face and blonde spiky hair. As she nudged him slightly, he gave another "M" and his eyes slowly opened as he looked into the face of the woman before him. His blue eyes streaked her face before rubbing them slightly and smiling widely at her. You're going to be late if you stay in bed any longer. The later you stay up with him, the later you'll be waking up in the mornings, smiled Hinata, as she slowly got off the edge of the bed, while brushing off her dark blue skirt before standing up and fixing her apron. I know, sorry, laughed the blonde, as he threw off the covers and slowly walked towards the washroom. While Hinata walked back down to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Hey, look mom, it's alive, stated a blonde-haired female at the corner of the table, as her pale purple eyes watched the other blonde boy walk into the room. I am not an it, stated the blonde, as he grabbed a piece of toast from the table and glared at her. Says you, she smirked as she looked to the boy. So, are you meeting Sachi today? Smiled the blonde across from her, as he munched upon his toast and watched with amusement as the blonde girl blushed. No. Liar, anyways, I'm off. See you later, he said with a goofy smile, as he walked over to Hinata and kissed her cheek before running out the door grabbing his bag. HMPF, muttered the blonde female as she crossed her arms and glared at the ceiling. You're going to be late if you don't hurry. Konohamaru isn't going to wait long for you, you know, stated the elder woman, as she watched the female roll her eyes and give a low sigh. I know, Mom. I'll see you later. You want me to pick the brat on the way home for supper later? Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind. No problem, she said with a smile as she kissed her lightly as before walking out the door. They are more like you with each passing day, smiled Hinata, as she spoke to no one in particular. You're late, again. Sorry Aruka-sensei, smiled the blonde as he entered the huge classroom and sat to the back of the room next to a raven-haired boy with dark eyes. You're late again. Shut up, I know that already. So what did I miss? He asked while looking at the dark-haired 9-year-old. Nothing, just review over yesterday's class. Okay. Now, I thought I'd give you a surprise today. For today's history lesson I thought it would be a good idea to have it outside, smiled Aruka, as he watched their faces light up with excitement. Lord Hokage, these files have just Lord Hokage. Oh no. I lost the Hokage again, said Odin, as he dropped the files and looked frantically around the room for the blonde. You lost him again, stated Sasuke as he looked amusingly at the brunette before him. It isn't my fault, he just likes to not be in this room all the time, well, 90% of the time, said a depressed 35-year-old. Now, who can tell me where we are? Asked Aruka, as about 30 hands raised into the air as fast as the words left his mouth. A small smile graced his lips as he looked over to the blonde whom was the only one not to wave it around like a maniac. Nara, said Aruka, as he pointed to a brunette girl whom was gazing lazily to the clouds above. Her dark eyes looked lamely over to the man in front of her. She looked at him as if he were the stupidest person in the world before answering. Just like her father. We're on top of the Hokage Tower, and are currently facing the Hokage Monument which holds the 6 faces of the greatest ninja our village has ever produced. Her eyes then looked back to the clouds, while the chubby boy beside her laughed silently while the blonde thinner boy only rolled his eyes. Correct. Now Uchiha, tell me exactly who they are from left to right. Does it have to include names? Asked the raven-haired child while looking towards the elder man. It's up to you. The first one is the first Hokage. The founder of our village is also known to be the strongest of his time. The second is his brother. The second Hokage was also TL'd the strongest after the first had gone. The third down is the third Hokage. He was taught by the first and second. He was one of the longest running Hokages known to date. He took a deep breath before continuing. The fourth down is known to be one of the most heroic ninja to live. He's the one who defeated the 9-tailed demon fox that attacked our village 38 years ago. He was taught by the student of the third Hokage, one of the 3 legendary Sannin. Jiraiya. The next is the fifth Hokage, our first female Hokage. She is known for her medical ninjutsu. She was also taught by the third Hokage, and was also known as one of the legendary Sannin. The last Hokage known to date is the 6th Hokage, one of the most heroic ninja there is. He was the student of one of the legendary Sannin Jiraiya and was the son of the 4th Hokage. To list all the things he has done for the village would take over 30 minutes, and sensei. I really don't want to list them off, he stated as he looked lamely at the man before him. Now, when I grow up, I'm going to become Hokage, stated a red-haired male, as he stood up and pointed to his chest. Not with your grades you aren't, said Aruka. Sensei, muttered the boy as he hung his head, while the entire class laughed. Now I, on the other hand, might just become Hokage, laughed Aruka as he smiled goofily at his young students. How many years have you been making that joke, sensei? Laughed a blonde man as he appeared behind the brunette, causing him to slightly jump forwards away from the blonde whom was laughing. While a few kids in the class looked oddly at the blonde, while others smiled. Naruto. I mean Lord Hokage, yelled the elder man. Naruto smiled as he looked at the brunette as he laughed away, before turning his gaze questionably towards the large class. Everyone, we have a very special guest here today. This is the 6th Hokage. I expect you to show him the same respect as you would show me, well, as you would show a Hokage, smiled Aruka, as Naruto lazily walked from behind the older man to view the large crowd of children before him. Recognizing a face or two. Would you like to join us? We are doing our history lesson outside today. History. So, I can ask them anything. Well, alright. Now, let me think, said the blonde as he placed a hand under his chin. trying to think of a suitable question. The children looked at him with questionable eyes, trying to understand the Hokage. And why he was speaking so loosely. Iruka stared at the blonde, half frightened of what he was about to say. Tell me, if you had to protect someone, who would it be? He asked while looking out into the crowd of children. I would protect my mom and dad, and my little sister. Even though she annoys me, said a small brunette from the crowd. I'd protect my friends, said another. Me too, added in another, whom sat next to him laughing. I would protect my whole family, and my cat. Bill, stated a small timid girl in the back. Lord Hokage, who would you protect? Asked a petite girl in the front row. Her red hair sticking out at odd angles. Me, he asked while the children nodded. Well, for one, my son. Minato, stated Naruto, while the blonde child in the crowd smiled proudly. While others looked at him in amazement, never knowing he was the son of the Hokage. But I would also protect each and every one of you here, as well as everyone in our village hidden in the leaves, smiled Naruto, while the various children looked at the man before them in awe. Even Minato looked at him with bewilderment. Everyone? Asked the same girl with fiery red hair in the front row. Of course. Because each and every one of you is important to me, he added as he smiled at nothing in particular. The children of the village will one day surpass all those who had come before them, so in order for you to be the best you could possibly be, it's up to me to look after you. Wow, said a few bewildered children. Now, who can tell me what it takes to be a Hokage? Asked Iruka as he looked at his students fondly. To be the strongest in the village, said a small boy in the back row. To be admired as a hero, said another. To be accepted by everyone in your village, said the blonde thin boy who looked disgusted to the chubby boy across from him who engulfed a huge bag of chips. As he had said those words, Naruto slightly flinched. Minato noticed him, but to everyone else it seemed to have been unnoticed. To be powerful. To kill all your enemies, stated the brunette whom stood up from before. Not exactly, stated Iruka as he looked at the boy, whom looked confused. What do you mean, sensei? Asked the brunette. I have never killed a single person in my entire life. And again, this was actually before Naruto killed a guy. So yay, I'm playing on that one. So don't go OMG lies, stated the blonde as he looked down at them. The children gazed at the Hokage with abnormally large eyes. Their faces blank. Even Minato and Itachi looked bewildered. But how is that possible? Asked the Uchiha as he sat next to the blonde, obviously not believing the man before him. Well, you see, the Hokage has a strange gift, but just as Iruka was about to finish, someone had interrupted. There you are. You can't just leave whenever you feel like it. Idiot. Even if you are Hokage, muttered a voice from behind. The students watched as the blonde man hung his head in shame and watched with confusion as he nervously laughed. Hey look, Itachi. It's your dad, muttered Minato. As he watched silently with the Uchiha beside him, they silently watched the elder men silently argue. Only using their eyes, which seemed absurd to the children next to them, but commonly, and annoyingly natural for the two 9-year-olds who silently sweat dropped at their father's attitudes towards one another, even though they were best friends. They still acted like mortal enemies. Sasuke, why are you here? You should be on a mission, stated Naruto, rather than a question. I came back. If you had been in your office, you would have known that. Dobe, muttered Sasuke as he said that last part. What did you say? Yelled the elder blonde as the two glared daggers at one another. You two really haven't changed, muttered the brunette man as he looked at them with pity. What are you talking about, sensei? I'm way stronger now than when I was 12, stated Naruto. Obviously, shot back Sasuke. Or you wouldn't be much of a Hokage, would you? You're just mad because I can kick your ass, says you. I've already proven to you that you're no match for me, you bastard. Quote. There was obvious tension in the air between the two. Soon the children were sure they could see sparks coming off from the elder men. I turn around for 1 minute. And you and Naruto are already going at it? Questioned a pink-haired female as she walked out from behind the students, obviously pissed off. Crap, muttered Itachi. She's mad again, should we go hide? Asked Minato as he whispered to Itachi, who seemed uncertain of what to do next. It's too late now. Hey Sakura, smiled the blonde happily as he looked over to the pink-haired female, who lightly sighed realizing she had just been ignored. Sasuke stayed silent as he looked down to the large class, and spotted two people whispering. He gave a low sigh before turning his gaze back to Naruto. Let's take this elsewhere, he stated clearly. Obviously annoyed. Fine, but I need Sakura to come too. Why? She asked suddenly, her voice despaired of suspicion. I might have broken something. Then get someone to fix it. I'm not a mechanic. About that, what did you do? Asked Sakura, as she rubbed her temples. The children weren't able to hear the adults now, they were already headed towards the stairs. I may have broken someone, stated the blonde as a few children flinched back. That was one thing they did over here. What do you mean, by someone? Asked a skeptical pink-haired woman as she eyed down the blonde. It was nice seeing you again, sensei. But we should be going, laughed the blonde as he yelled back towards his former sensei. The pink-haired woman's yells could be heard off in the distance as the three retreated away. While Iruka gazed stone-faced at the Hokage. Are you really sure the Hokage is all that great? He didn't seem all that powerful to me. More like an idiot, muttered the brunette girl as her eyes never left the clouds. Don't underestimate the Hokage, he is, stated Iruka before he got cut off. It's true, you know. He can be a complete idiot at times. Really clueless about the most trivial matters. But when it comes down to it, you'd want him on your side, stated Minato as he looked to the Hokage monument. You're just saying that 'cause he's your dad. No. He's right. To be blank, there is a reason as to why he was TL'd Hokage. In fact, he had the lowest grades possible in school. It took him 3 tries to graduate, and yet he did it. He was placed under a man for training whom had always failed students. It's true he had failed his Chunin exams, but he had saved the village while doing so. It may be an understatement or an overstatement. But Uzumaki Naruto has become one of the greatest Hokages to ever have been produced from the village hidden in the leaves. He has allied more countries together than any other Kage. And he has a special ability. One to which a lot of people envy, smiled Iruka as he looked not to the students but to the monument. What's that? Asked Minato as he gazed questionably at the brunette. He can instantly make anyone a friend just by talking to them. He is able to make an ally with a person even before he asks a name. That doesn't seem so great, muttered the Nara girl. But it's a hard trait to come by. Honestly, it's his personality that draws people towards him. His personality? Asked Itachi confused. Yes, it's unique. He has a never-ending determination. He will fight for what he believes in even if he SS. He will continue his path. I doubt even death could stop him again. Again? What you mean he already SD once? Asked a horrified blonde as he looked at his sensei in distrust. No, well yes. Well I mean, as the elder man tried to figure out the exact words to put into context, the blonde boy gaped at him. Knowing full well what he was going to ask his father when he returned home. Sensei, if you were to sum up the Hokage's life, how would you do it? Asked a raven-haired girl from the back row. The number 1 loudmouth dropout who grew to become a Hokage, who surpassed all the other Kages, he said with a cheeky smile as he looked at the students before him. You're the idiot. You are. No, you are. Idiot. I know you are, but what am I? Still an egotistic micro-sized brained idiot. Enough, yelled the blonde girl as she glared at the 2 arguing Chunin in front of her. Her eyes cast to the silver-haired boy with his hood pulled up and red markings upon his face. Then her eyes cast over a bit less harshly to the magenta-haired boy, whom wore a pair of black pants and a long black-sleeved shirt with the Uchiha symbol upon it. The 2 looked blankly at her, for her sudden outburst of anger towards them. All you 2 do is argue. I swear you 2 must be the only ones in the entire village who act like 5-year-olds. I bet the Hokage would be ashamed. God only knows what your parents think. She stated as she dropped her head slightly and rubbed her temples trying to ignore the 2. Then blushing, instantly realizing she had just yelled at the 2 most grudge-fulfilling people she knew. You're the idiot. At least I didn't break his leg. You idiot. It wasn't my fault. You're the Hokage. ACT like 1. What's that supposed to mean? Uchiha. You know exactly what that means. Uzumaki. Enough. If you 2 carry on like this anymore. KONOHAMAR, you won't be the only one with broken legs. Yelled Sakura, interrupting the 2. 3 voices were heard distantly from across the 3rd training ground. As the three teenagers looked to their right, they noticed Naruto and Sasuke glaring at one another from only a foot apart as they helped carry a wounded Konohamaru towards the hospital. While Sakura followed close behind, lowering her head and glaring at the ground as she rubbed her temples, trying to clear her head of the constant yelling. The two looked towards the blonde-haired girl, whom stared blankly at the Hokage himself and an elite Anbu member yell at one another over a trivial matter, like 5-year-olds. Her eyes then looked back towards the boys and met the gaze and instantly blushed. She lowered her face as to hide it, and slumped to the ground while playing mindlessly with the fallen leaf beside her, cutting it in half easily with a chakra thread. Who's the 5-year-olds now? And what about your dad being ashamed of us when he acts the exact same way? Smirked Sachi as he looked to the blonde. If I recall, your father was there too. Uchiha? Smirked Clay, as he looked at the magenta-haired teen across from him. At least I can actually learn a basic technique, without almost killing your own teammate. At least I didn't have a revenge-seeking good-for-nothing FA. Hey, enough. He didn't mean to harm me that time, you know that as well as I do, Sachi. And Clay, that's even low for you. Well, it looks like Sensei isn't coming today, let's go get some ramen. Hey, does anyone else smell cinnamon? Asked the blonde-haired female. The two looked blankly at her, trying to understand how her mind possibly works in that head of hers. Well, let's go, she said with a huge smile as she linked arms with the two boys and dragged them towards town. Are you going to tell me how you managed to break his leg? Asked Sakura as she leaned over the brunette's leg, her hands hovering only inches above as chakra pumped into the wound. Naruto remained silent as he looked away from the female and out the window. Naruto, she began again before Konohamaru interrupted. It wasn't his fault, Sakura, I noticed him training earlier this morning. And without thinking I walked up towards him. And, she began as she looked at the two. I thought he was the wood post, stated Naruto as he looked away with a half smile while Sasuke stood in the corner of the room with a smirk. You what? Don't get mad, I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, he smiled as he looked towards Naruto. I can't believe you. What if that was someone else, one of the children? She exclaimed as she yelled towards the blonde. They would have been smart enough to know not to go near him when he trains, stated Sasuke, knowing full well he was right. Both their children knew not to disturb their training time, if so they would make their presence known. Sasuke, he has a point, Mom, smiled Sachi as he looked towards his mother and father as he entered the hospital room, the blonde girl following behind. What are you two doing here? Asked Sakura as she gazed towards the two 15-year-olds. It's almost impossible to go on a mission when your sensei's gone. And even harder to get permission when the Hokage is never where he's supposed to be, stated the blonde as she looked towards her father. Ahahi, smiled Naruto as he rubbed the back of his head. You're back, stated Sachi as he looked over towards his father. HN, was all the reply that he got as he looked over towards the teen. How was it? Didn't get hurt again, I hope? Asked the boy as he walked over towards his father. Oh Sasuke, you're not hurt, are you? I mean, I never even thought to ask, began Sakura as she finished putting the cast on Konohamaru and swiftly walked over towards the male in question. I'm fine, Sakura, he said with little emotion as he gave a slight flinch as she touched his chest. I knew it. You're hurt. Lay down right now. Sakura. Was that a no? She asked sweetly as she tilted her head slightly as she looked towards him. I'll go lay down, he said with a sigh, rather as to not get hurt. Whipped, muttered Sachi as he looked towards his father with a smirk. Sasuke remained silent, and just as he laid down a kunai knife missed the young boy's head by less than an inch. Whoa, he yelled as he fell backwards, knocking the blonde female down. Just as she was about to hit the ground, something caught her instead. Be careful, she's my only daughter, stated Naruto as he held the young girl defensively in his arms while looking at the boy from across the room sitting on the floor. Wide-eyed. Dad. How? She stammered, never once seeing her father move that fast before. Are you alright, kidda? Asked Naruto as he set the blonde girl down. Why yeah, I'm fine. That's good, now I better be getting back before they send out the Anbu to look for me, smiled Naruto as he leaped out the window. Don't forget to get your brother after school, he yelled back before disappearing into the distance. Are you alright? Asked Kidda as she looked towards the boy who was stuck in place on the ground. I'm fine, he stated as he glared at the girl. Well fine, she stated as she glared towards the magenta boy before leaving. Hey, where are you going? He yelled towards her as he quickly got off the ground, following her. Bye mom, dad, sensei, he yelled back towards them. Don't forget to get Itachi, yelled Sakura as she watched the boy run out the door. Only a faint I won't could be heard. Couple hours later, sis, yelled the blonde boy as he ran over towards the girl with confusion and worry across his face. Whoa, what's wrong with you? Asked Kida as she looked towards the boy, obviously confused. I heard something weird today, about dad, he exclaimed as he walked next to her down the street waving goodbye to Sachi and Itachi. And what did you hear? She asked as she looked towards the younger blonde, who looked pretty tired. Here, get on, she stated with a sigh as she bent down and let the younger climb onto her back. That he SD once. And that he was this demon inside of him. He stated on the verge of tears. What? She said with alarm as she snapped her head back to look at him. Yay. It's true, Aruka sensei told me that he SD once. And old people were talking about it all day. He said as he looked to her. I've never heard that before, she said as she tried to remember if someone ever told her that. I want to know. We'll ask dad when we get home, stated Kida as she walked faster towards their house. Mom, we're home, yelled the two blondes as they walked into the house. Your mother's not home. She's on a mission with your uncle and Kiba, stated Naruto as he appeared from out of the kitchen. Great, you're home. We have questions, stated the blonde as he ran up to his father giving him a hug before looking towards the blonde girl behind him. Questions? Asked Naruto as he looked to the two. Yay, Minato found out something today. And, well, she began as she looked towards her father. It's about you, and some demon. And Grandpa and, Minato exclaimed, his words coming out way too fast. Ah, I understand. Come with me you two, smiled Naruto as he led the two outside. Why are we here? Asked Kida as she looked towards her father as they stood upon the top of the Hokage monument. It's the best view of the entire village, he stated as he sat down upon a bench, signaling the two to come next to him. Now, before you begin to ask a million questions at once, I'll just start at the beginning, smiled Naruto as he looked towards the two children. The beginning? Asked Minato as he looked to his father. Yes, is this going to be a story? Smiled the blonde female as she looked to her father. Yes, but this story begins way back, before you two were born, to the day the nine-tailed demon fox attacked our village, smiled Naruto as he looked towards his children. To the time of the fourth Hokage, the time when there was only a single choice between right and wrong was made, began the blonde. None of them knew how long they sat there, listening to Naruto talk about the nine tails attacking in his childhood, Gaara, the old pervert, the third and even his father. By the time that he finished his story the children were tired but in awe. Never had they known the true adventures of Uzumaki Naruto, about how one decision can ultimately change the world as they knew it. The end. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.